and it just positions kids to be able to solve problems. And that's difficult work given the challenges that we have as a continent, as a country. What's the one frustrating thing that frustrates you when it comes to this work?
If I'll be dead honest, what frustrates me the most is people that think the only way we can do this is with very expensive laboratories and expensive robots. I'm not against it. I'm not against those, Prof. I lecture in labs every day. But I really have a sense that there's this image, perception, that if you want to show that we're taking Africa ahead, we put a kid in a lab in front of a computer. Or we have a kid promote programming a little robot. Great, that's the ultimate. But if that's our image, and I've got to re-say it, we're simply excluding millions of our young people. And we don't need to. We don't need to put them in a fancy lab to include them. We don't need to. I get so upset when a corporate brags about spending 3 million rand on a lab at one school. And it's all in the newspapers and the ministers there. I must be careful what I'm saying.
It's okay.
Because they're reaching maybe 100 kids with 3 million rand. And then you come to that lab in a year's time and it's locked. That's my second frustration. When millions are spent on infrastructure, but not on HR development, not on someone to maintain that lab, not on someone to teach the coding in that lab. So you give a school a lab and you don't empower the teachers to teach Word and Excel. What's happening to the lab? So you go for the photo opportunity, and I must keep quiet because I'm very activistic when I get to this topic. That frustrates me, that we are willingly, knowingly, we don't mind excluding people, our kids, because we want the fancy photos, saying in very blunt terms. This can be debated, and I'm open for debate.
Cool. Prof, can you please give us a bit of background in terms of how the tech scale was developed and how it started, or how the idea was formulated?
Okay, so the basic concepts were we wanted to introduce coding concepts. So the coding concepts that we introduce in this game are the concepts that any professor would teach at any university, whether it's Nelson Mandela or Harvard. It's the sequential coding, a list of instructions. It's your repetition coding, loops, while loops, repeat loops for the coders out there. And then decision making, if statement. And then putting constructs inside constructs, so a loop within a loop, nested constructs. So that was the first thing we wanted to do. The second thing we said, the only device we want to use is the cell phone, which at that stage we thought everyone has. But that's another story. But most teachers at least have a smartphone. In cities, most kids have smartphones, but not at all. So it's the concepts, it's the device, and then basic puzzle pieces. So it literally looks like puzzle pieces. There's 31 of them in a game pack. So what the challenge is, the child sees on the phone screen we call it a grid challenge. In those days, the tank had to move to a certain destination. It could shoot away obstacles, not people, rubble or something, to reach the destination. So that's a grid challenge. Those have heard of Scratch. Scratch is something similar. And then how to code this, you take your puzzle pieces, you pack them out on your table, they become the code. So they give the commands. They've got QR codes on them. You take a photo of the puzzle pieces with your phone. Because of the QR codes, your list of instructions are internalized. And when you confirm, those instructions are executed on the screen. So the learner gets immediate feedback on the code, whether you reach the destination or not, and what went wrong, and they can change the code and take a new photo. So that's the basic concept in all our games, whether it's tanks or rangers or speed stars or all the others.
Thanks, Prof. And I like the fact that it focuses on logic, because I know when I started university, what I struggled with was the terminology and just the logic in itself. And I'm always an advocate that syntax you can always pick up, you can always learn, But what becomes important is the foundational blocks in terms of the logic in itself. And I think the last question I have is what role do universities have in terms of amplifying this work and ensuring that our government does roll out successful coding initiatives in schools?
I think there's two ways where universities can get involved, and I think some are already. They're acknowledging that there's a coding and robotics curriculum coming. So the education faculties need to start giving their students the tools to implement this curriculum. And since the first 3 to 4 years are unplugged, I would strongly recommend that any education faculty that teaches students to become teachers, especially foundation phase, that they are taught the unplugged block coding. It doesn't need to be hours, but anything. So education faculties need to come on board for the coding and robotics curriculum. It's kind of the wrong way around now. Schools are going to start and teachers haven't been taught, but that's the one. The second one, I've got a PhD student who's working at a high institution where he's looking at whether this hands-on tangible coding work done in group, like you said just before, will assist them in teaching the textual coding. So by teaching the logic first with a group, physical interaction, tangible puzzle pieces, does that help me to then go and teach a group in Python? So I would really hope that universities, who also get a lot of learners from rural who's never seen coding before, first go that route before they teach Python and C#.
And how do we take this work forward as a collective, as a society? How do we take this work forward as various stakeholders?
By acknowledging and accepting, like many of our teachers have, and many of our corporate sponsors have, that when we talk to young kids, when we want to bring young kids into the fourth industrial revolution, there are other ways that are cheaper, that are more practical, and that are more inclusive. So we need to, I always tell the story 4 years ago when I started talking unplugged coding. It's not my term, it's a global term that has. Some of our politicians were saying, what is this unplugged coding nonsense? I have to say this, people were saying to me, you are a white guy that wants to keep a black child behind with inferior education. So if we want to introduce coding, problem solving, the fourth industrial revolution to the child of Africa, we need to find low-tech solutions. Those solutions that are not impressive on photos. You just played with our game, it's puzzle pieces in the photo. It's not an impressive photo. And we need to go for that low-tech, unimpressive solutions where we can reach millions rather than a 3 million lab where we're reaching 100 kids. So we need people to buy in. It's not just us. There are other people doing great work in unplugged coding across the world. Corporates and governments and departments of education need to realize that they're never going to build all those labs. We need to realize we need another strategy. Many of the schools we reach out to don't even have electricity. They don't have a budget to buy a kit for 3,000 rand. Where are they going to get a budget to build a lab for a million rand? So we need to get over those hurdles and say, let's have a footprint. Let's reach many people with the best possible solution.
I think I like the fact that it's quite practical, it's quite simple. In a society where we have limited resources, where some of those schools even lack basic sanitation, we can't expect to be building expensive labs. My next question is, where do we currently find you? Where does TANKS have presence, and what are the next exciting projects that you guys have?
We evolved from TANKS, the first app in 2017. Because it had too much of a military theme. We started picking up problems when we went to Europe and into Africa. It's now called Tangible Africa. It's a movement implemented by the Liba Foundation, a non-profit, as an engagement project of Mandela University. And Tangible has, our flagship tool is still the app. It uses puzzle pieces and a cell phone to teach coding. But there's many apps. There's now Rangers, it's got the game coaching theme. There's Speed Stars, which has got the Grand Prix Formula 1 theme, Code Cup is a soccer theme. There's Juicy James, which is agriculture, but it's all coding. But next to that, we've developed lessons, we've developed other material that supports this whole thing. So it's a much bigger thing than the app. So the two big projects for 2025, just a side note, when we started training in 2018, we said the skills needed in 2025, as if it's, now we're there. So the two big projects is the government has gazetted their coding and robotics curriculum for primary schools last year, June. These are going to be rolled out next year in foundation phase, grade R3. So what we're doing currently, every week, we've got a group of teachers developing offline, unplugged lessons that's directly aligned to the CAPS curriculum. And we're sending that out via chatbot. We've got about 3,000 teachers registered that get these lessons every week, and they can immediately implement in their class. They don't need any coding background. It's clear enough for them to implement. So we're busy rolling that out. By the end of the year, we'll have 40 lessons for each of those grades. We need to get more and more teachers on board. And then our big flagship project since 2018 is Coding for Mandela. It started in 2018 in this building, literally where we're sitting now, with 30 kids competing. Because our game has levels, it leaves for gamification in a tournament. So we had 30 kids, 5 teams playing against each other in this building, here in this room. Last year we had 32,000 across all the provinces in South Africa, a few countries in Africa, and it then culminates into a World Champs, where last year we had 22 countries competing. So Coding for Mandela is back in July this year. It's the tournament concept with the people that have our games, but there's going to be these lessons with Mandela themes, fun stuff people can do in class in July. And then we also have the Coding for Mandela song. It was created through AI. The words, the beat, the rhythm, the music, the voice, the instrument is all AI generated. So we're challenging as many as possible schools, corporates, whoever, to dance this dance. We're trying to do the Jerusalem, I think.
Okay, lovely.
It's a lovely dance. We had 70 schools do it last year. And then they send us the clips and we do a compilation. So Coding for Mandela is going to happen in July. I want to see 100,000 kids participate. We all know about Braai Month in September. Our vision is Tangible Africa, and we're selling it as wide as possible, is that July, Mandela Month, becomes the month in which we code. And last year, this time, I heard from the Mandela Foundation, and that's why Mandela is so important for us. Nelson Mandela in 1988 had his granddaughter Nandi with him in the cell on Robben Island. And this talk was scripted, and we've got the exact quote, in which he was talking about Nandi's grandchild in Tata, still 4 years old. And he was saying to her, you must take your son and teach him about computers, because that's the thing of the future. That's Nelson Mandela in 1988. So when we say Coding for Mandela, that quote from Mandela on Robben Island, we hold fast. And then Mandela what says, daughter of a pheasant becomes a computer scientist. That's our dream for July.
That's beautiful. And if you can give one piece of advice to a teacher who's sitting in Umtata or in the deep roads of Eastern Cape, scared of coding, doesn't know where to start, how would you advise them?
Very subjectively. Contact us. Because our target is that teacher. I spoke to a teacher last night from somewhere in the hall. Exactly that person that says, I've got nothing, I don't know where to start. If they contact us and we put them on their chatbot and they just start doing the lessons, they will be feeling empowered the first week. We've done training with teachers in 2021 for 4 hours. They're still running coding clubs and they've never seen me again. So if I have to be subjective, marketing brand, call it whatever you want to, please contact me if you're that teacher that doesn't know where to start. There are other people as well, but we really be targeting you, that teacher that today says, I don't know how to start.
Thank you so much, Prof, for taking your time to chat to us. This is really work that is needed in society, because this is work that helps the African child realize the possibilities of what they can become or what they can do through technology. We really appreciate having you today. Thanks.
Thank you.